41, Dion versus Everson. All parties, please step forward.
Caitlin Dion claims her former employer, Scott Everson, breached their contract to buy her baby shoe business.
All right, what looks to be a complicated case actually is merely just a contract case. Ms. Dion, you had a side business of making baby shoes, and I assume that those are the baby shoes.
Yes, it was a full-time business.
The defendants had a children's clothing website, and they became familiar with your baby shoes, and they were interested in buying your business. You entered into a contract wherein I believe that they agreed to pay you $30,000 for the business. Is that correct?
That was the asking price. There was never a written contract signed.
That's incorrect.
Just a second. You entered into a deal for $30,000 and an employment contract without a written contract?
I have the written contract here, Your Honor.
Oh, yeah. I would say goodbye to you all if there wasn't a written contract.
There was a draft of a contract, the terms of which changed numerous times over the 2 years.
You can't change a written contract. Was it a written contract that was signed by both parties?
No, it was never signed.
He refused to sign it, even though he was the one that wrote it himself and emailed it.
Former employer, Scott Everson, breached their contract to buy her baby shoe business.
Well, then there was never a meeting of the minds. May I see that? This is going to be a much easier case than I thought.
That's also incorrect. I have audio.
Just a second. This is going to be a much easier case than I thought.
That's the latest draft of an agreement of which there were several drafts prior to that.
Listen to me, sir. It doesn't make any difference to me. She's suing you because you paid her pursuant, I assume, under this non-contract, according to you, $31,000.
In good
that
faith.
Was both for a piece of her business and for her staying on for a period of, I don't know, 4 months, 6 months?
That was never agreed to.
Neither was the $30,000. Do you understand? You can't have it both ways,
It's a
Ms. Dion.
complicated case.
It's not complicated. It's very simple. You didn't have a written contract. If you had an oral contract, that's one thing.
I do have that, actually. I have audio that we can play right now telling him that he promises to pay me $30,000 regardless of how long I worked for him.
Just a second. The original deal that you had was for $30,000.
There was actually an original deal that was much more than the contract he took months to change to sign.
There's no question that under the terms of what you both thought was reasonable, you agreed to accept $30,000 from him for the business, and you would stay with the business for a period of time, either 4 months or 6 months. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but that is totally reasonable because he wasn't in the baby shoes business. According to your complaint, you were going through some marital difficulty, you were going through other major problems, and you called him within the period that you were supposed to be working for him and said, this is too much for me, I can't do it. I read your complaint. Do you understand? That's a breach of your contract. If there ever was a contract, that was, listen to me carefully.
If you look in the contract, it says that he would take away $400 per week that I did not work for him.
This is not, listen to me, Ms. Dion, listen to me very carefully. This is an unsigned contract.
Why didn't you send it to me then?
Just a second. He gave you $31,000.
He did not. He gave me $5,000.
Just a second. He says he gave you over the period of time $30,000. Did you give her?
I have to.
Just a second.
In the period of time that we've known Ms. Dion and worked with her, I've given her $31,668.
I have proof that says otherwise.
I'd like to see it.
Here are my hourly paychecks.
No, not that.
Those are paycheck stubs, of which of the $31,000 she received,
that were not
$10,000
part of the business purchase price.
Listen.
No, you're right. That was pay stubs.
I have to explain something to you. There was no written contract and clearly no meeting of the minds based upon what you both told me today.
What was I supposed to do? I signed the contract and gave it back to him.
Then you should have done nothing. If he didn't sign it, you should have done nothing.
I was a single mother at the time.
Ms. Dion, you have to understand, this is a court.
He had all of my assets.
This is a court. It's not Dr. Phil. You had no written contract, and if you had no written contract, you had to have an oral contract.
I do.
No, then you had to have an oral contract, and that oral contract clearly did not reflect a meeting of the minds of both of you. If he didn't sign this contract, and whether it was for your business or for your employment, are you saying to me that you did not receive from him? I'm just curious, because he has the documentation to show me that you did not receive from him $31,000.
I have documentation. Sorry, I thought that was a question you asked.
That was a question, that you did not receive from him. I don't care if it was the business or as a worker, that you did not receive from him during a period of time $31,000.
I did not. That's incorrect. I have my paychecks. I have the down payment that he made. I have the installments that he made.
Just a second.
All of which
He gave
added up to
me-
$31,000.
Just a second. Add them up, and I asked you a question. How much was it? Your paychecks and the down payment he made on your business. How much was it? I want to know if it was he said it was $31,000.
He paid me $16,666 for my business. My paychecks do not matter. They were not a part of the business agreement.
Did you file your case in small claims?
That is not a part of my business.
Did you file your case in small claims court?
Yes.
Just
Working
a second.
hourly was not a part of
Dion,
the contract.
Pay careful attention to me. If you filed your case in small claims court, I'm going to give you an opportunity to go back there. If you think you have a case, I do not. I do not believe that there was a meeting of the minds when there's a contract unsigned for over $10,000. That's absolutely ludicrous. As long as I'm comfortable with the fact that you got paid during a period of time, $30,000, so that you worked and you got paid. The contract for the sale of the business, as far as I'm concerned, was never consummated. I'm going to let you go try to explain your position to a judge in either Superior Court, because I don't think small claims courts hear cases up to $10,000. I don't know where you're from. Where are you from?
It's actually $11,000.
Utah.
In Utah.
I'll go back to Utah. This case is dismissed without prejudice. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
I reminded him over the period of 2 months.
Paid her $31,000 for her time in her business.
Give me the contract, give me the contract, give me the contract.
She wanted a job. That's how she first approached us. She applied for a job with us.
My working for him hourly was never part of the agreement.
I wish I had been more careful.
I'll see him back in.
And Reza Mahasani are suing 20-year-old Jennifer Santiago for medical bills after being hit by a car.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Case number 2020, Hildreth Mahasani versus Santiago.
Thank you. Miss Hildreth,
Yes.
pronounce your last name for me, sir.
Mahasani.
Mahasani.
Yes.
You two were crossing the street in San Diego.
In Carlsbad Village.
Is that in San Diego?
It is. It's a suburb of San Diego.
Is that where you live?
Correct, in Carlsbad.
And you were hit by Miss Santiago, who was driving her mother's car.
Correct.
Miss Santiago acknowledges that she hit you, and you were seriously injured. You've had shoulder surgery. You were both injured.
Correct.
When did this happen?
This happened on Friday, September 4th, 2020.
I just have a couple of preliminary questions before I get into the facts of it.
Sure.
I assume that since this accident happened in 2020, that you tried to sue either the defendant and or her mother as the car's owner.
Well, we would have done so, but the driver was uninsured.
That's the question. You would have done so,
Yes.
except the mother had no insurance.
It is my knowledge that the mother had insurance, but that and which I have the evidence, that her daughter was excluded from the policy.
The policy, and therefore the insurance company disclaimed.
Correct.
I'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
That's why your mother's not here.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, that's why your mother's not here, Miss Santiago.
Without her knowing.
Miss Santiago, that's why your mother's not here.
No.
Well, were you excluded from the insurance policy? That's either a yes or a no.
Yes.
Then you shouldn't have been driving the car.
Yeah, I know.
Just a second. Then you
I
shouldn't
know.
have been driving the car.
I took the car.
I don't want to
knowing
hear
that-
I don't want to hear some pat answer from you. Do you understand? That's why your mother's not here.
Well, it was
I didn't
my
ask you a question.
responsibility,
I didn't
and I took
ask
the car
you.
without
Do you
her
understand?
permission.
They don't listen to you when I'm speaking. When I ask you a question, you'll answer me.
Just-
I don't want to hear some pat answer. I want to hear a lot of I'm sorries. I want to hear a lot of I'm sorries.
Why would I say I'm sorry if they didn't pay attention when they were crossing?
You weren't supposed to be behind the wheel of a car.
But I was paying
You
attention.
weren't supposed to be behind the wheel of a car.
But why they didn't pay attention?
I'm not speaking to you. I just told you why. Why should I
There was
say I'm
no
sorry?
lights flashing.
Be quiet. Why should I say I'm sorry if they weren't paying attention? Because you weren't supposed to be behind the wheel of a car. If you weren't behind the wheel of a car, whether they were paying attention or not would be irrelevant. You weren't supposed to be driving. She thinks you have a big mouth. You don't have a bigger mouth than me, madam. I guarantee you, the last person who drove yesterday that wasn't supposed to drive yesterday because they were drunk, killed six.
Drunk.
Nobody's listening to you. When I'm speaking, nobody's listening to you. Killed 6 people. Last person who drove that wasn't supposed to be behind the wheel of a car killed 6 people. You were not supposed. Hey,
drunk.
I'm speaking. You were not supposed to be behind the wheel of a car. Don't you understand that?
I understand
that. Are you
that.
stupid? You were not supposed to be behind the wheel of a car. You were an excluded driver, and you were an excluded driver for a reason.
Not only that, Your Honor.
Just a second. Don't speak. Now I'm going to read and calm myself down. I don't like my blood pressure to get too high. I just don't like stupid. Our investigation, which is after you notified the insurance company, determined that the driver of the insured's car, Jennifer Ramirez, was not covered by the policy. That's what you're telling me.
Correct.
I don't understand this. You were walking, correct?
Correct. Both.
What is this? Your driving privileges will be suspended on November 21st. What is that?
I think there was a misunderstanding that we were actually driving a vehicle.
Yeah.
And when I called the DMV and I explained that, no, we're actually pedestrians, then they said, oh, I'm sorry, disregard that.
Yeah.
Stupid.
And
Do you have a letter from them indicating that this is wrong?
They just told me that we can disregard it, and they just corrected it. That's all they did.
And
Can I
it
say
was stopped
something?
because she was also unlicensed?
Just a second. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I'm not there with big mouth. Okay, this happened on September 4th, 2020. What time of the day?
It was in the evening. It
What time?
was about 8
I think
p.m.
it was, around 8 o'clock.
Light or dark outside?
Dark.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of
It is.
the intersection where this happened?
It is, Your Honor.
Ms. Santiago, is that a fair and accurate representation of the intersection where this happened?
Yes.
So at the intersection where this happened, there were lines across the highway indicating pedestrian walkway.
Correct.
And there were 2 signs indicating pedestrian walkway.
There were 3 signs. One in the center median and one on each side.
On September 4th, Ms. Santiago, this requires a yes or a no answer from you. On September the 4th, 2020, did you have a valid driver's license?
Mahasani claimed 20-year-old Jennifer Santiago struck them in a crosswalk while she was driving without a license. Jennifer says they were not paying attention and walked into oncoming traffic.
Now, on September 4th, Ms. Santiago, this requires a yes or a no answer from you. On September the 4th, 2020, did you have a valid driver's license?
I didn't, Your Honor.
I said it's either a yes or a no. Did you have a valid driver's license?
No.
Did you ever have a valid driver's license?
No.
Do you have a valid driver's license today?
No, Your Honor, because they...
That's a no. What's your name?
Vanessa
What?
Giles.
Stand up. Did you come with her today?
Yes.
How did you get here?
I drove. My license.
Just a second. You drove?
Yes.
In whose car?
My car.
What kind of car is it?
Kia.
Did you ever drive with Miss Santiago?
Yes.
When? Did you ever drive in a car where she was the driver and you were the passenger?
Yes.
When?
September 4th, 2020. 2 years ago.
Other than September 4th, 2020, did you ever drive with Miss Santiago where you were the passenger?
Yes.
When?
September 4th.
I said other than September
that,
4th.
no.
Other than September 4th.
Other than that, no.
On September 4th at 7 p.m., 7 p.m., where were you?
We were at the beach. Carlsbad Beach.
Sure, you were at the beach. Who else was at the beach?
Santiago and another friend. He's a minor. He's 16.
There were 3 of you at the beach.
Yes.
Anybody else that you knew at the beach?
No.
How long had you been at the beach?
Like for an hour.
So you got there at 6 o'clock in the evening.
We got there at 7. We were going back home at 8.
So you got to the beach at 7. What did you do at the beach at 7 o'clock?
We were just sitting there, eating, relaxing, having a good time, as teenagers that we were.
Now, did Miss Santiago pick you up or did you meet at her house? Just think, take a breath. Did you meet at her house or did Miss Santiago pick you up?
She picked me up.
How far do you live from her?
2 minutes away.
And what about the 16-year-old minor?
3 minutes away.
Did she pick up the 16-year-old minor?
Yes.
How old was Miss Santiago in September of 2020?
18.
Are you a good friend of hers?
Yes, I am.
You knew she didn't have a driver's license?
Yes.
Did you know why she didn't have a driver's license?
She was still studying for a test.
Had she taken the test before?
Yes, she has.
She had taken the test before.
Yes.
Do you remember how many times?
Yes.
How many times did she take the test?
2 times.
And the 2 times she took the test, she failed it?
Yes, she did.
Okay. So now she's driving without a license because she's failed her driving test twice at the time of this. So she's studying to pass it maybe for the 3rd time, right?
Yes.
And now we have 2 years later, she still doesn't have a driver's license.
Yes.
Do you know why?
No.
Well, you're her good friend. Didn't you ask her? Well, it's 2 years later. Did you ever pass your driving test?
She hasn't yet.
Sit. Now tell me what happened at 8 o'clock on the 4th of September, 2020.
I have pictures if you like, and would it be okay to approach the screen to show you better?
No, it's not necessary. You were crossing the street.
Correct.
In a crosswalk, she hit you.
Correct. We were.
You
That's what
crossing the
happened.
street in a crosswalk and she hit you.
Yeah. So we had come to the crosswalk sign on the left side of the photo. We pressed the button. It illuminated the flashing lights to indicate that it was okay to cross. We looked to the left. Those 2 cars were already parked. We proceeded to the middle and noticed that the car furthest, in the furthest lane from us, that car was already parked. So we proceeded and we were hit.
What happened when she hit? Don't! Hey! Don't speak. Hey! Listen, for someone who can't take and pass a driver's test 3 times, at least I would keep my mouth shut until I look at you for an answer. Do you understand?
Yes.
And it was estimated by the officer that we...
No. She hit you in a crosswalk. That's a crosswalk. This young lady knew I'm not... Did you hear me? I'm not speaking to you. You don't understand this was a really bad day for this kind of case to come into court. You do understand that?
Yes.
Okay, good. And you know why this is a very bad day for your case to come into court?
No.
Then you don't read the newspapers. I suggest if you read the newspaper, maybe you would be able to pass your driving test. Because either you failed the written portion or you failed the driving portion, one or the other. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Now we understand each other. Now you're almost at I'm sorry. You're almost at I'm sorry. When the defendant's car struck you, where did you land?
I have photos to show.
I'd like to see it.
It kind of shows on the second photo there.
Oh, you hit her windshield. Who hit her windshield?
We
Is that you?
both did,
Both.
Your Honor. And the hood.
That's not true. I only saw that her husband, that he hit the shield. It wasn't her.
What an idiot. Kevin, I would like you to show Miss Santiago that photograph and this one. Can I see the police report, please?
Sure.
See?
I'd also like you to show her these. I just want her to take a look at them. To know what happens when you act irresponsibly. And you do things that you're not supposed to do, like take a car and drive it when you have no license, when you failed your driving test twice.
Lisa Hildreth and Reza Mahasani are accusing 20-year-old Jennifer Santiago of hitting them in a crosswalk while she was driving without a license.
Okay, your last name is?
Giles?
You spoke to the police that day.
Yes, I did.
I don't know what you're doing here as a witness. She stated she did not see what happened. That's what it says here.
Yes.
Now, just a second. That's what it says here. Uncross your arms. Now you can sit down. Gillis stated she did not see what happened. However, she identified Ms. Santiago as the driver. And then there was a witness. Witness 1 stated she was riding as a passenger in a vehicle driving northbound on the 3100 block of Carlsbad Boulevard. The two plaintiffs were crossing the road in a marked crosswalk on the south side of the intersection of Carlsbad Boulevard and Oak Avenue. The two were crossing from the west side of the street to the east side of the street. The yellow warning lights next to the crosswalk were flashing.
They were not.
Witness 1 observed Plaintiff 1 driving northbound towards the crosswalk at a fast speed. She drove through. I'm speaking, not you.
I was not.
I'm speaking, not you. I'm reading from a statement in the police report from a witness who stopped when this accident happened that you don't know, neither do you. Okay, so now we have a witness who neither one of you know, who said the yellow lights were flashing. Even if they weren't, there's a crosswalk and there are signs that said pedestrian. But this witness says the lights were flashing. Then the officer who did a blood test there for alcohol states as follows. During the investigation, P1, that would be you, displayed objective symptoms of intoxication. I noticed her eyes were slightly red and watery. Her speech was very quiet. I determined P1 was under the influence of cannabis.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Just a second. Do you have any supplementary police reports?
The only other thing that I have from the officer is an email that he...
No. Okay. An email to whom?
An email from the police officer to us.
I'd like to see it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what you said to the police officer was, and the police officer responded to you, that the report came back negative.
Correct.
And he said, I'm not changing it. Therefore, it's not a criminal matter. You have to sue her civilly.
Correct.
Because clearly the accident was her fault.
Correct.
Were you taken to the hospital that day?
We both were.
And you were taken to jail?
Yeah.
When was the last time you took a driving test? Month and year?
I haven't taken no driving test.
When was the last time you took a driving test, madam? You failed twice. So I want to know when the last time was that you took a driving test.
I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Did you take a driving test in the year 2021?
Yeah, I did.
Did you pass that driving test?
No.
Was that your third or fourth driving test?
That was the second.
No, you took 2, according to your friend, before 2020.
I know.
So I asked you, in 2021, did you take it? You said yes, you didn't pass it. And I asked you, was that the third or the fourth test that you had?
That was my second.
No. I don't know how much more that a court system can do, but to say to people who don't have driver's licenses, especially in your case where you tried to get a license but failed to pass on at least 2 occasions before this incident, which means that you were a risk to be on the road because you couldn't pass a driving test twice before this incident. Now, you want to tell me whether you, and this requires a short answer, not one of your long ones. Did you have your mother's permission to take the car that day to pick her up and go to the beach?
No.
Have you ever had your mother's permission to take the car and go anywhere?
No.
So in effect, if you had no license and you didn't ask for permission, then you stole the car.
No.
What do you mean no? You
just
didn't have permission of the owner to take the car. You weren't a licensed driver. Therefore, there was no insurance. Well, let's go back. Did you ever ask your mother to use the car?
No, not at all.
And what happened after you had this accident in your mother's car and after you got out of jail? what happened between you and your mother?
Well, she was sad because I was in jail, and well, she was also mad because, like, why would I take the car without her permission?
Why did you take the car without her permission?
Well, I honestly didn't thought that this would happen.
Nobody thinks that an accident is going to happen. I don't think you intentionally hit these two people.
No.
I don't think you intentionally hit these two people. Are you ready to say I'm very sorry yet?
Yeah, I told them we have talked before, I told them that I was sorry, and I'm telling them again that I'm sorry.
Good. That's better. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $10,000. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
Well, I'm really pleased with the judge's decision.
I didn't see anything until the guy hit the windshield.
So we're here, and we're grateful for that.
I was super scared. Like, I was like, I killed them. Like, I was crying in jail.
We both have to deal with physical injuries, but like Lisa said, it was the unluckiest and luckiest moment of our life. So we're grateful that we're here.
Being pretty close to 18 myself, I can understand.
Sorry, absolutely.
Case number 2024, Morgan versus Davis. All parties, please step forward.
Corey Morgan is suing dress designer Jacqueline Davis for party costs and a dress deposit.
Ms. Morgan, this is what this case is about in a nutshell. You were celebrating a birthday. When was your birthday?
March 24th.
And you always make a big deal, according to you, about your birthday. It's a very important day of the year for you and for everybody who knows you.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the way Sarah feels, actually. Me, I sort of like to forget birthdays now. I like it to run right by that day as undercovered as possible. Anyway, you celebrate your birthday with a big party.
Right.
And according to you, you get a spectacular dress for this party, invite everybody that you know and care about. How many people were you having for your birthday party?
It was going to be about 12 people.
Where was it going to be held?
It was going to be at the James Harden restaurant.
Who was going to be there?
My best friend from Chicago, my mom, my dad, just an intimate setting of family and friends.
Mom, dad, your best friend from Chicago. Who else?
Just family, cousins, aunt.
And you couldn't get the restaurant for that day, so you made it in April on a different day than your birthday.
Yes, I originally booked it in January 18th. The restaurant, it's a big deal, so yeah.
Whatever. It was postponed until what date?
Yes, ma'am, April.
Jacqueline Davis is responsible for party costs and a dress deposit. Jacqueline is countersuing, claiming Corey owes for travel costs.
And you ordered your dress from the defendant. You found her through a mutual friend because she makes wonderful clothes. The defendant also is a tax preparer, I understand. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So she's busy. So she makes clothes. She's a tax preparer in season. You made arrangements with her to make your dress, and she was going to make your dress at the cost of $300. According to you, you didn't get your dress in time. It was never fitted at all after your initial measurements were taken. Is that correct?
Yes.
And since you didn't have the dress for your dinner, you had a terrible birthday, you canceled your birthday, and you want her to pay for the dinner.
Yes.
Not happening.
Just the build up.
That's Miss Morgan. How old are you?
I just made 35, so it was the build up leading to it.
So if you turned 35, I'm a lot older. Sarah's younger, and my other grandchildren, you know, were around that age. I have one that's close to your age. I cannot imagine any of my older grandchildren, or me, for instance, canceling an event because I didn't have just the right dress. I mean, it's not as if a bride is canceling her wedding because she didn't have a wedding dress to wear. Of course, if you want to get married badly enough, you put a sack over your head with a tie and you walk down the aisle. But you don't cancel the wedding. So you want her to pay for the deposit that you made on the dress.
Yeah, it was.
And another $1,000 or more because you didn't have a nice party.
So originally when I booked it, it was for April 1st. When I tried to rebook it, because she told me at the last minute that she was not going to be able to do the dress, which was the week of. I had originally set up for her to do the dress so I could have something to wear. I purchased shoes, nails, everything.
I understand everything. She's not going to pay you for the party. You should have worn something else for the party. Believe me, your best friend from Chicago, your mother and your father would not have cared if you wore that dress or any other dress. You should not be out a penny.
I was out of penny.
Well, you were out $150. You gave her $150. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I gave it back to her. I sent her a refund.
Oh, you did send her a refund?
Yes.
Did you? Just a second. Up. When did you send her a refund, Miss Davis?
I sent her a refund on March 29th. She requested a refund on March 28th, and I sent it directly to her.
To her on March 29th?
Yes.
How did you send it, by check or?
She sent me the money via Cash App, and I returned it via Cash App.
Do you have verification of that?
Yes, I do.
And she kept that money?
Yes.
Is that correct, Ms. Morgan?
Yes, ma'am.
That's just a yes.
Yes.
Well, what did you think you were taking that money for? You asked for a refund, she gave you a refund.
I gave her $150 and she sent me $105 back, but she sent it the week of my event. So
I don't care the week of your event. Did you send her $105 or?
I did.
Why?
Because I was charged a fee with Cash App, and also there were additional items that were purchased that I told her about that I deducted from that.
You can't deduct anything from that. And you can't even deduct the fee from Cash App because what it cost her was more than $150 then to send it to you, right?
Right.
Right. So why should you send her less?
Because I previously explained to her that I needed to order stones. Those stones were ordered.
Oh, then you're going to have to eat those. You didn't have the dress in time. You didn't have the dress in time.
The dress wasn't done.
No, it wasn't done. Not even according to you was it done. She hadn't had a fitting on it. The problem is you gave her money, and you should have sent her exactly what it is that she sent you because you didn't fulfill your end of the contract. A day before the party is not the time to say it's 95% ready. Okay. She has to give you $145.88, which is exactly what she received. Am I correct that that's what she said?
That is what she said.
$145.88? Okay. She doesn't pay you for your disappointment, for your sorrow, for your party costs, or anything else, just for my own information, because that's my judgment. Did you spend your birthday with your mother and father? That's either yes or no.
No, ma'am.
Who did you spend your birthday with?
My boyfriend.
Oh, was he invited to the other party?
The dinner, yes, but I had to cancel the dinner.
I'm just asking.
Yes.
You didn't have to cancel the dinner because you didn't have a dress. That's what I'm trying to get to you. You could have gone to your dinner in that dress. I know, it's silly, and it's a little bit immature also. What about your best friend from Chicago? You told her not to come in because you didn't have a dress?
Well, I told him that I would be canceling the dinner because I purchased shoes, my nails, everything was accustomed to the dress. So when she didn't deliver the dress, everything was already in black and silver. I did not have a chance to go look for anything because it was the week of.
Oh, yes, of course you did. Of course you did, black and silver. You put on black pants, black top, and you put on silver around your neck. We're done here. Don't be ridiculous, Miss Morgan. You have to grow up a little. You have to give her back her money. Don't disappoint people. I mean, I know it's busy. It's tax time. You said to her, I'm busy. I'm working on things for the Oscars. You can't overstretch yourself. I know that it's very entrepreneurial to try to do too much. But sometimes when you try to do too much, you disappoint somebody.
This court is adjourned.
I'm not happy about it just because I'd already given her a refund.
I'm happy with the decision. It was pretty much principle for me. She was very unprofessional.
And given from the beginning, I worked with her.
And she didn't respect my time and she canceled on me at the last minute.
And she waited to the last minute and canceled the order. So
she canceled at the last minute because she didn't have the dress ready to begin with.
Everything was really on her, but she put it on me because she was unhappy with how she chose to deal with the whole situation.
We'll be getting another dress with my original person that I was gonna go to.
Absolutely not.
But from now on, I definitely will be going with who I know.
Will not work with the plaintiff again.
So I remember seeing through COVID, a lot of wedding dress shops closing down and the stress of brides going for fittings and seeing their dress, picking their dress, and then the shop just closed right out from under them. I wonder if any of them canceled their wedding because they didn't have the right dress.
I think that one of life's lessons is as you get older, you have to prioritize the importance of things.
True. Spending time with friends, family, out of town, coming for your birthday. I couldn't imagine canceling an event just
because you didn't have the right
outfit.
dress. Because you didn't have the right dress. So I think that there's a lot of growing up to do, maybe a little less narcissism, because it would seem to me spending time with your boyfriend, your mother, your father, your best friend from Chicago is more important than having the right dress to fit your nails and your shoes.
I agree.
Maybe I'm just...
is suing his former friend, Tony Woods, for car damages after a night of drinking and driving.
Court come to order.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2018, Gray versus Woods.
Thanks, Kevin. You're welcome. Everybody sober today? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yeah.
You?
Yes, I'm sober.
Yes?
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
Everybody. Okay, good. You two gentlemen know each other. You went out for an evening. I assume there was some drinking, and your car got totaled.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that the defendant was driving your car when it got totaled.
Yes.
The defendant says, well, he was drinking a little bit, but he says that you don't remember because you were so blotto that you were driving. Right?
Yes.
So that's what the case is about. Simple. Two drunks, nobody knows who was driving the car when it got totaled. Let's see if we can decipher it. If we can't, I may not care. Because you're not supposed to be in a car when you're drunk. Otherwise, you can kill a lot of people, as we all know. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Want to drive drunk and kill yourself, that's one thing. Right? You take a lot of other people down, and sometimes you make it out. So you have to be understanding to the fact that the judicial system really doesn't give a rat's behind if the two of you were drunk and in a car, and neither one of you was together enough to know who was driving the car. Yeah. When did this incident happen?
It was November 27th, 2021.
How long have you known Mr. Woods, Mr. Gray?
I've known Mr. Woods about 20 years, I would say.
So you've known him since you were kids?
Yeah, since high school.
And you have gone out frequently?
Yes.
Does he come to your house?
Yes.
You go to his house?
Occasionally, yes.
Occasionally. And where were you going on the 27th of November?
We were going downtown Ann Arbor to attend some festivities from the Michigan versus Ohio State football game.
To a football event?
Yeah.
How did Mr. Woods get downtown?
Well, Your Honor, I got dropped off.
By whom?
My friend.
Friend's name?
Lauren.
And where did she drop you off?
She dropped me off in front of the Starbucks downtown where they were waiting, because they were drunk. I didn't drink.
Just a second. Lauren dropped you off at Starbucks. Where were you supposed to go from Starbucks?
We were supposed to go to a club and hang out after the game.
So you first went to the game?
No, they went downtown right after the game, and I came to meet up to hang out.
So it was all after the game?
Yes.
What time did Lauren drop Mr. Woods off at Starbucks?
I would say it was around like 3, 4 o'clock.
In the afternoon?
I believe so.
What time did Lauren drop you off?
It had to be about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
And when you say it had to be 5:30 or 6 o'clock, how do you know that?
Because the game was over.
I don't know. I don't watch football, so I don't know when it starts and when it finished. Do you remember what time the game finished?
No, I don't remember exactly.
Okay, so let's say Lauren dropped you off at 5:30. How did you set the time for Mr. Woods to meet you so that he could join your party? The game is over different times. Did you text him? Did he call you?
So on the way, we had left from my barbershop, me and my witness here, Mo Chop.
So you weren't at the game, you were in a barbershop?
Yeah, we were at the barbershop at first. We watched the game.
Oh, you watched, so you didn't go to the game?
We didn't attend the actual game, no.
Okay.
We watched the game at the
How many people, you, Mohammed, and who else watched the game at the barbershop?
I mean, the barbershop was full of, we were still working at the time. We had left work after the game was over to go downtown to...
Were you watching the game or were you working?
I was doing both.
I would have hated to be your last haircut.
No, actually, it wasn't a lot of people there because that was the biggest game of Michigan's season, the last game, Ohio State. It's a big rivalry, so nobody was in our barbershop.
So
really.
It was just party? It was...
It was just party.
You know, I'm old, so, you know... It was just party. You said, Mohammed.
It was a party. Yeah.
It was just party. Okay. So you left the barbershop, but how did you find out to meet them at the Starbucks?
We had been communicating through text.
So you knew what time they were leaving the barbershop, and then you got dropped off. Now, what were you doing with Lauren?
I was waiting to get to them.
Where were you before?
I was at home. I watched the game at home.
With Lauren?
No, with myself.
Well, how'd you get Lauren to take you to Starbucks?
Oh, I just asked her and gave her some gas money.
Okay, so now you're at Starbucks, you meet up, and who's driving?
I was driving.
Okay, and that would have been a mistake.
Excuse me?
That would have been a mistake. I wouldn't get behind the wheel of a car, sir, if I was at a party all afternoon watching a big football game.
Ma'am, I wasn't at a party. I was at my barbershop.
I know you were at your barbershop.
Yeah.
Look at Mohammed. I know you were at your barbershop, sir.
There had been any drinking going on at that time.
There was no drinking in the barbershop, Mohammed?
There was people participating. Some people weren't. Some people were. I wasn't. I wasn't participating.
All righty. Okay. So now you go from this party in the barbershop all afternoon from this very big game, and you pick him up, and where were you going?
At that point, we decided to go to a bar.
Where was the bar?
I'm not familiar with downtown Ann Arbor area, but like it was a bar that was suggested by...
Stand up next to him. He's not familiar with a whole lot of things. You suggested a particular bar, Mohammed?
Yeah,
How far is that from the Starbucks where he was dropped off?
about a couple blocks over.
Okay, and you were in the car?
I was in the car.
Were you sitting in the front or the back when you picked up Mr. Woods?
I was sitting in the passenger seat at this point.
So Mr. Woods got in the back?
Yes, he did.
And you were going a couple of blocks to the bar?
Yeah.
Step by step, what happened next?
So traffic is jam-packed down there, so we're really just inching to the bar. We get to the bar, we go inside, we have a couple drinks.
Okay, so now it maybe 6 o'clock,
yeah.
6:30?
Yeah, dark outside.
And you have a couple of drinks at the bar?
A couple drinks, yeah.
What were you drinking?
I was drinking water.
That's not a drink that they like to serve at a bar.
I was a designated driver, so. Okay. After we left the bar.
Okay, so you were the designated driver, and Mr. Gray was drinking?
Yes.
What was he drinking?
I don't remember what his drink is.
You remember what you were drinking?
Yes, ma'am.
What?
I had one beer.
Okay. Even he can't keep a straight face. You know, it's hard. It just, don't speak. Now, you were the designated driver. When were you designated the designated driver?
Well,
think very careful. Before you answer my questions, you know. Okay. I'm already 2 steps ahead of this game. When were you,
I've watched you on TV, yes, I know.
When were you designated the designated driver?
When we left the bar, I was the designated driver.
No. So it was when you left the bar?
Yes.
And who designated you the designated driver?
Well, I kind of designated myself. I'm pretty familiar with the Ann Arbor area. It's actually my idea to go downtown, so.
So you asked Mr. Gray if you could drive?
Yeah, I thought it would be the best idea.
And Mr. Gray said okay?
Yes, he did.
So you drove, and where were you going from the bar?
To another bar.
Better pickings at the other bar?
Just bar hopping, you know, college, downtown, football.
Okay, and what's the name of that bar?
Where do we go from there?
You're not up! Speak, as I look at you. The name of the other bar. Okay, now he helped you with that, right?
Yeah, he jogged my memory a little bit.
He jogged your memory. Yeah. So if he knew the bar, why did you have to be the designated driver?
I don't think I understand your question.
It's very easy. You said you were the designated driver because you know that area.
Right. I'm saying I didn't remember what bar we went to. I'm very familiar with the area. I just didn't remember what bar we were going to that night.
Okay. What happened when you got to the second bar?
We had some more drinks and...
We had some more drinks?
Yes.
What was Mr. Gray drinking?
You know, I was talking to some other friends that I met up with there. He was off doing his own thing. I don't remember what he was drinking.
What were you drinking?
Water still at this point. Water. Yeah. I like to stay hydrated.
Claims his former friend, Tony Woods, drove drunk and crashed his car. Tony says Daniel was the one driving drunk and wrecked his own car.
Okay, so now you had a couple of drinks, you had another glass of water. Yes. Mr. Gray and Mr. Woods both were drinking alcohol, and what happened next?
We left there, we went to get something to eat.
Where did you go to eat?
We went to, what's the name of that place?
I don't know the name of the place, and he's not going to tell you.
It's a hot dog place. It's right around the corner from where we was drinking.
And then what happened there?
We got something to eat.
Okay, do you remember what time that was?
You know, I really don't.
Well, you've been already to two bars and a place to eat. So, and if you started out at 6 o'clock, it had to be closer to 9 or 10 o'clock.
Right, yeah.
Okay, then what happened?
Came out of the restaurant. And
you remember what you had at the restaurant?
I had some waffle fries.
And do you remember what Mr. Gray ate?
He had a hot dog.
And do you remember what Mr. Woods ate?
He also had a hot dog.
Good. So you came out of the restaurant. Do you remember who paid the bill?
I think we all paid separately.
Okay, so now you come out of the restaurant.
Yeah, we come out the restaurant, we had eaten already. And this when Mr. Woods over here started horseplaying a little bit, charged at me from across the street. You know, I tried to get him.
But just a second.
Okay.
How did he get across the street?
Well, the restaurant was across the street. We parked across the street from the restaurant.
Okay, I got it.
So I had already got back to the car.
Okay.
And Mr. Woods over here started horseplaying, and he ran across the street and tried tackling me, and he got me around my waist. I tried to put him in a headlock, but you see the size of his head. And that just continued throughout the night, this horseplaying.
No. So he's horse playing with you.
Right.
But you get into the car. You said if you continued all during the night. What I want to know is, from the place where they got hot dogs and you got waffle fries, did you get back into the car?
We did get back into the car. We went one more place.
Okay. Now, when you got back into the car after the 2 dogs and the fries, who was driving?
At that point, I think I was still driving.
Not think. I don't want to think.
I believe I was driving. I dropped myself off to my next destination because I separated from them two.
You went to one other place?
Yeah.
With them?
With the 3 of them, yes.
And when you got to the other place, you went in or you did not go in?
I went inside, yeah.
Okay. Did you stay there?
I did stay there.
And what about the 2 of them?
They went wherever they went. Back to the barbershop, I believe.
And you were the designated driver.
Up into the
So you were drinking the water?
Yes.
And they were both drinking alcohol? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. What do you mean, yeah? You go to at least 2 bars, maybe 3. You have a whole afternoon of drinking at a barbershop. Not you, you were drinking water.
Water, yeah. I don't know what.
Then you get dropped off. You was the designated driver. Now, they're nowhere near home. So you knew one of them was going to be driving.
Right.
And as far as your testimony is concerned, you were left in the last place that you visited. They went out to go someplace else or go back to the barbershop.
Right.
Did you see them again that evening? Is not an answer. I mean, we're coming to court today. You know, it's not a photo shoot. You came here for testimony.
I don't believe I seen them that night again.
No, I'm just talking about that night. That's what we're talking about, that night. This is the night of the accident, the 27th of November, 2021.
I didn't see them again.
You're in a club. You don't know what happened. Now, when they dropped you off, did you go outside with them or did you just stay in the club?
I stayed inside.
So you don't know anything else?
What happened after that?
Now you can sit.
Thank you.
Okay, now your witness, the designated water drinking driver, has dropped himself off and the 2 of you go outside. What happened?
After he gets dropped off, we are parked at a bar and...
Just a second. He stays there. You get into the car because you're going to another bar.
No, not at this point.
Where were you going?
I was getting ready to go to my barbershop.
He's not with you. Who was driving?
I was driving at that.
Okay. And you were driving to take yourself back, according to you, to the barbershop.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Okay, so we get to the barbershop and I leave the car running. He's in the car with me.
Just a sec. Got to the barbershop and you left the car running for what reason?
Because it was cold outside. It was snow. It was, I guess, November.
Well, what were you going to the barbershop for?
I went to the barbershop because I needed to use the restroom.
And the barbershop is close by to this last bar you were at?
Yes.
How close?
Maybe like 2 miles.
Okay, so you went to the barbershop. You left the car running and?
So I go in to use the restroom and I leave the car running and Mr. Woods was sitting in the car still. So as I'm in the restroom, he comes in and started knocking on the door and says that he had lost his phone when he had got out the car where we were parked at.
Where?
The last bar that we were at. I didn't actually go into the last bar. We was parked there. We were about to go in to meet up with him.
What do you mean to meet up with him? He was with you.
As he said, he met up with another friend.
He didn't tell me that. He said you just dropped him off at the other bar and you weren't going in, just he was going in, you dropped him off. That's what he said.
No, he went in.
I understand he went in.
All right, I never went in the last bar.
Okay, you didn't go and neither did he.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you, he said I lost my phone someplace.
No, where we were parked at, he got out the car for a second. I never got out the car. He got out the car for a second. And at
what
some
was he
point
doing when he got out of the car for a second?
He thought we were about to go in, but I told him that I needed to use the restroom. So he got back in the car. But at some point when he got out the car, he dropped his phone. So I told him I needed to use the restroom. So I go to my shop to use the restroom. I park the car.
Got it.
I get out. I leave the car running. I go in, use the restroom. He comes in, knocks on the door, telling me that, hey, yo, I lost my phone. Can I drive the car? Let me go pick it up real quick. And I tell him no. Like, just wait, I'll be out in a second. So he leaves. I hear the door open and close. I'm thinking that he's just going to sit back in the car. So when I come out of the restroom, my car is gone. I call him, and he's not answering the phone. So I keep calling. And then the next, 10 minutes later, he answers the phone. So I knew he went to go get his phone.
He found his phone?
Yes, and I'm furious at this point because he just left me in my
At the barber shop?
Yeah, in my car. So I tell him, bring my car back right now. He said, I'm on my way. I'll be there in a minute. About 15 minutes later, he called me and say, yo, man, you gonna kill me, man. I just crashed your car. I'm sorry, bro. Mm-hmm. And I had to walk all the way to the accident scene, to the car where he crashed my car at.
Now, you have an accident report?
No, I don't have an accident report.
Why?
Because we never called the police.
That's
because
probably a good idea.
He wasn't involved with another car. He just hit a pole.
I understand that. That's still an accident report. The only reason you don't call the police is because both of you were drinking.
Well, I wasn't driving the car at that time.
When you were driving the car to the barber shop, right?
Yes.
From the last bar where you dropped Mohammed off, you were driving.
Yes, I was not drunk though, Yana.
If you're not drinking, it's sort of an interesting thing. Everybody's definition of drunk is different. Your friend Mohammed said that he was the designated driver, so he was just drinking water. That's what he said.
That's what Mohammed.
Which suggests to me that we had a full day of drinking, starting at the barbershop, watching the game, from the game to 2 or 3 bars, then for a bite to eat.
No. I wasn't drinking at the barbershop. I didn't start drinking until we got to the first bar.
Okay, so now you started to drink at 6 o'clock. Now it's 10 o'clock, and you've been drinking from one place to another. I'm just saying you got behind the wheel of a car and you had been drinking. Now, did you hit a pole?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, now you tell me your version of the events.
Gray has accused his former friend, Tony Woods, of driving drunk and wrecking his car.
Okay, now you tell me your version of the events.
Okay, first off, I ain't eat no hot dog. So I never.
You didn't what?
I never had a hot dog. Never ate
Okay,
hot dog.
strike the hot dog.
No hot dog.
Whitney, he denies the hot
I
dog.
didn't eat a hot dog either.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Denies the hot dog.
Okay, so for what happened after they got in the car, first, they were very drunk.
Just a second. You don't have to tell me. All 3 of you were drunk.
I wasn't drunk yet.
Okay. By the time the car got trashed, you were drunk. Let me tell you what I believe.
Okay.
So that you can pick it up from there.
Okay.
I believe that Mohammed was dropped off at the last bar. So there came a time at the end of the evening when it was just the 2 of you. I don't know who was driving, I don't know who was the passenger, but I believe that they dropped him off because otherwise Mohammed, who appears here as a witness today, would have had a better story because he says, I don't know what happened afterwards, because I wasn't there. So there was a time at the end of the evening that just the 2 of you were in the car.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Okay, can I tell you before that part though? Because he was driving down the wrong way of the street.
Well, there's no question in my mind he shouldn't have been behind the wheel of a car.
And that's when I lost my phone and my wallet, and we were wrestling in the street. He actually attacked me.
Let's move forward.
Okay.
There came a time when just the 2 of you were in the car.
Okay.
When was that?
Well, we were sitting in front of a bar that we were about to go to. I got out the car, and I dropped my phone. At that time, I asked him to take me back to get
No. You dropped your phone. And you didn't know you dropped your phone because if you knew you dropped your phone, you would have picked it up.
Right, correct.
Right. So then you got back into the car. Driver's seat or passenger seat?
I was in the passenger seat.
And Mr. Gray was driving?
Yes.
And Mr. Mohammed was at the bar?
Yes, he was with a friend.
He had gone to the bar, so it was the 2 of you. You're in the passenger seat, he's driving, and he's drunk.
Yes.
And you went back to the barbershop for him to use the restroom. Just follow, because there was a time when you wanted to go back to look for your dropped phone. Do you understand?
Correct.
Now, he goes back to the barbershop. How long was he in the restroom before you realized that you had dropped your phone?
About 5 minutes.
And you realized that you had dropped your phone because you tried to make a call while you were waiting for him.
Correct. And it was snow on the ground, correct.
It was snowing, and he didn't have a Frankfurter.
Yes.
So now he's gone in to use the restroom. You go and look for your phone. You see how easy this is, like, it's like fishing in a fish tank. You went inside, and what did you do when you went inside when you realized that you had lost your phone?
I told him, let's go get my phone, and he drove us and went and got the phone.
Okay, so he came out of the restroom. You got back into the passenger seat of the car.
Correct.
And he got into the driver's seat of the car.
Correct.
And what happened?
Then we called Mohammed to try to meet back up with him after we got my phone. And then...
No. Step, slowly he turned. Step by step, inch by inch. Now you're in the car, on your way back to the bar where Mohammed is to look for your phone.
I got drunk. I think I blacked out after that point.
Not according to your answer. According to your answer, you knew exactly what happened, sir. What do you mean you blacked out? You signed a sworn statement.
I know we got the phone. I got the phone back.
Well, I know you got the phone, so you had to have driven back there successfully to get the phone.
Yes.
And is it at that point that you get back into the car and you blacked out?
No, it was just, I got really drunk after getting my phone. Like, after that, I just...
You don't remember what happened?
I remember getting my phone and being drunk. Like, I got my phone.
Okie dokie, there we go. Okay, you were all drunk. As a matter of fact, I have zero sympathy for any of you getting behind the wheel of a car. Okay, the car was damaged.
Yes, I have.
And so what you want me to believe that you blame him, and I could understand that because I don't know how drunk you actually were, whether or not you blame him for your wrecked car because you were driving the car back to find his phone and it wouldn't have been in that problem had he not dropped his phone out of the car, or whether he was actually driving the car drunk. It's actually irrelevant to me. You were both driving drunk. You have a bill to fix the car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it.
And I have pictures of the accident.
Okay, so, yeah, so the bill was $5,500. And you had insurance?
Yes.
And the insurance paid for how much?
I had no fault insurance.
So you didn't have...
I didn't have collision.
Okay. You didn't have collision, so you had to pay $5,500, which you paid.
Yeah.
Divide that by 2.
$27.50.
That's what I thought. So, Mr. Gray, there are some lessons that you learn, and I don't know whether other courts would agree. I have to make a determination as to credibility, and quite frankly, I can't determine between two drunks who's telling me the truth. Because on the 27th of November, both of you were in no condition to drive a car. And I can't tell who actually drove the car at the time that it was wrecked. But I do know that you drove the car from a club to your barbershop, and that neither one of you stayed at the scene, called the police, because both of you were inebriated and knew that either one or both of you were going to get busted for a DUI because you both drove the car that evening. What?
Ma'am, I was not drunk at the time that this happened. I did go to the bars, but I wasn't in the bars drinking. That I had one beer.
$27.50, we're done.
This court is adjourned.
I feel like he kind of got the story wrong because I wasn't drunk, but...
I think that was very fair. I feel like, the judge was very reasonable.
I had one beer that day, but, I mean, there's a limit to, being drunk in the state of Michigan.
It was just one of those drunk things, but we got it taken care of.
I wanted to make him look like my vehicle.
It was very snowy outside, and, something happened, and I don't remember.
I didn't do anything. I just called a tow truck and tried to get the situation solved.
And I'm very happy to get this case behind me.
Satisfied I got something out of the deal.
I don't know. Hopefully we could get back to being friends. He's a good guy.
I'm surprised you gave them anything. Unclean hands don't deserve money from this court, as we've seen time and again. So I'm surprised, really, that you gave him even half of what he was asking, because you couldn't tell which one of them was credible, if either of them were credible. And so what are you supposed to do? I mean, I guess splitting it down the middle was, I understand why you made your judgment, but I would have taught him a lesson, given him nothing.
Interesting.
Drunk driving is nothing to play around with.
Yeah. Okay.
Very serious.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad in the DNA it's getting tougher rather than softer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. You may be right. Yeah. You may be right. I just felt that they were both at fault. Mm-hmm. And either you leave the parties where they are, or you say both of you have to hurt a little.
Yep. I understand.
But I actually understand.
Casey Jennings Spencer is suing her cousin, Chris Jennings, for a loan to cover funeral costs.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2009, Jenny Spencer versus Jenny.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Spencer, are you related to Mr. Jennings?
I am.
How?
He's my cousin.
How?
On our dad's side. So his father and my father, that's how we're related.
How were they related?
So his dad and my father are pretty close in age, but they are cousins themselves. But my dad is pretty young, so they're close. My dad and his father are close in age, so they were more like brothers.
I still don't understand.
My father and his father were first cousins, but I was raised by my grandparents, so that's why we're close.
Okay, so your fathers were first cousins?
Yes.
Okay. Your mother passed away.
Yes, ma'am.
When?
Mother's Day on 2020.
Were you close to your mother?
I was very close.
Did you live together?
I was taking care of her for 8 years while she was...
So you were living with her?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was she when she passed away?
58.
What did she pass away from?
Her arteries had blockage. She had surgery twice, and they couldn't do the third surgery. Plus, she had 3 strokes.
When you were taking care of your mother, was that a full-time responsibility?
Full-time. She had a colostomy bag, and plus she was in a walker before she had the strokes.
Was it just you and your mother living together?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it in her home?
It was in my home.
In your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that an apartment?
It was a house.
That you rented?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you and your mother support yourself?
I'm an RF technician, so I worked when I could be away from home, but when she got real bad sick, where she couldn't even walk, I couldn't even work, so I couldn't even go out of town. So I work on the road a lot. And she gets a disability check, which is about $1,800, which wasn't much at all for us to survive.
Are you back at work now?
Yes, ma'am.
Who are you working for?
Myself. I'm a contractor, Extreme Communications.
When your mother passed away, Mr. Jennings, are you an only child?
Yes, ma'am.
She passed away in the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
At that time, you didn't have money for her funeral arrangements.
No, ma'am.
And you didn't have the funds to even take her body out of the hospital.
No, ma'am.
So what did you do?
Well, I thought I had insurance settlement, and I was going to take care of that, because she did have 2 burial plots. But when we went to...
Who's we?
Me and Angela.
Who is Angela?
She's my fiance. But when we went up there we've got 2 burial plots. When we went there to turn those in mortuary, they added on $10,000 or $15,000 to actually bury her. And I was unable to do that because her insurance had lapsed 2 or 3 months. You know.
So you didn't have money to take care of your mother's funeral expenses?
I did not.
Do you want to tell me how the plaintiff got involved with that?
I told Tracy exactly what... Yes.
At some point, your mother passed away on Mother's Day in 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you contact Miss Spencer or did she contact you?
She contacted me.
When?
During the process of me suffering because I didn't have the cash to front my mother's funeral.
Well, you know, it's hard for me to ask the question, how did she know about that? But
yes, ma'am.
Were there other relatives?
I was posting things on Facebook.
Okay. So what did you post on Facebook?
That I was trying to do a GoFundMe to help with my mother's funeral.
And how much after she died did you post something on Facebook?
Nothing much, not at all.
A day, 2 days, 5?
About 3 or 4 days after.
Did you see that? Is that why you contacted him?
That is not why I contacted him.
Okay, so why don't you tell me why? That's not what you said in your papers, so I'm curious. Why did you contact him?
As he said, his mother had been sick for quite some time, so her death wasn't completely unexpected. We had been following her progression on Facebook, and Chris is correct. He had been taking care of his mother. They were very close. But when the family saw on Facebook that she had passed, nothing got posted about funeral arrangements. And some of the members of my family who were not on Facebook contacted me and said,
"Don't tell me what they said to you."
Sorry.
So you were contacted by members of your family?
Correct, that are not on Facebook, asking about care.
Don't tell me what they asked.
I'm sorry.
As a result of those conversations, did you contact him?
Eventually. I did not contact him immediately because I just didn't feel like it was the right time. I knew.
When? Was it in June?
So it was right after her passing. I contacted his stepbrother and stepsister first because when I had not seen anything for 3 days about funeral arrangements, rather than calling Chris, who I knew would have his hands full handling matters, I actually contacted his stepbrother and stepsister, and I said, "Do you know anything about funeral arrangements?"
Nobody did.
And so they didn't know anything, and suggested that I reach out to Chris. I said, "Well, I hate to do that. This is a really bad time," but I did it anyway. And so I called Chris and I said, "Chris, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're going through a lot, but some people are asking me about your mother's arrangements and I don't know what to tell them. It's been several days. Have you picked out a mortuary?" And he started crying immediately, understandably so. no. He said, Tracy, I'll be honest with you, I don't even have the money to get her out of the hospital. He said, it's going to cost $500 to get her out. I said, okay. And I believed, without a shadow of a doubt, that he truly didn't have the money because they had a very tight relationship. So there was no question in my mind, if he had the $500 to get her out, he would have. I said, Chris, it's okay. I'll loan you the money. I'll call the hospital. I'll take care of it. Just calm down. And so we hung up. I called the hospital and I told them, I said, I'm not next of kin, but I'm going to take care of this matter on behalf of my cousin. So here's my credit card for $500. And the morgue told me that I couldn't pay $500, that was only their portion of having her body released from the morgue, that they could only send her body to a funeral home.
They have to send it someplace. If they're releasing it, they have to send it someplace.
Correct. They said that she had been there for so long that she needed to go within the next day because they can only stay there for 5 days. And
got it.
Sorry. Okay. So they said she needs to go now. And if you don't come get her or have a funeral home come get her, we're going to have to send her to Spartanburg County and they're going to be in charge of her remains, and the next of kin is at risk of being arrested for abandonment. And so I freaked out. I called Chris back. I said, Chris, I said, it's not $500. I said, they're not going to let us get her, and do you know you're close to being arrested? And,
No.
you know, I felt really bad about that.
Where do you live?
Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Just take a look and see if you can find out next of kin responsibility. I'm surprised that you were given that information from the hospital, but I may be wrong.
Morgue. Yes. So I called Chris and I said, the morgue is not going to let us get her body without a funeral home. Do you have a funeral home picked out? And I think at that time he said he didn't. And so he made some phone calls, Chris did, and then he called me back and he said, I found a mortuary. And so the mortuary that he selected was the one that ended up taking care of her remains. And so instead of me loaning him $500 to get her released from the hospital, I ended up getting stuck with $1,500 because I had to pay the mortuary.
Okay. He found a mortuary.
Yes, ma'am.
When you called the mortuary, did they tell you what it would cost?
I didn't call the mortuary to find out anything about that. She did. She agreed to pay everything.
No, just a second. I'm not getting there.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not there yet.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question is, did you call the mortuary?
I called them to see if they could take care of my mother.
That's what I asked you. I said, did you call the mortuary?
Yes, ma'am.
And after you spoke to the mortuary, you called the plaintiff back.
Sure did.
Okay. When you called the mortuary and she had already told you it would be $500 to get your mother's remains from the morgue, but then you had to take her remains someplace. You couldn't take them in your car.
Right.
They had to go someplace.
Yes, ma'am.
And common sense would suggest that you would ask what their cost was, what their fee was. Is not an answer.
For a cremation.
For whatever, and they told you it was how much?
They told me for the cremation, it was about $1,500 for cremation.
Okay, and then you called your cousin back.
Yes.
And let me hear the conversation, as you recall it, between yourself and your cousin.
Okay. I called her back and told her that I didn't have the money to take care of that. She goes, don't worry about it, Chris, I'll take care of it. It's exactly what was said.
Now, was that before or after you set up a GoFundMe page?
That was before.
So she took care of the bill?
Yes.
So this was 5 days after your mother's death?
Shh. Yeah.
You said it was after. Now, so it was 5 or 6 days before your mother's body was taken to the funeral home for the purposes of cremation. How many days after that did you start a GoFundMe page?
A couple days.
2 days. And what was the language in the GoFundMe page?
To help take care of my mother's funeral.
Well,
and expenses.
Shh, Mr. Jennings, if what you just said to me previously was, read back to me, Whitney, what Mr. Jennings said about the conversation that he had with her. It started with, don't worry about it.
He said, okay, I called her back and told her that I didn't have the money to take care of that. She said, don't worry about it, Chris, I'll take care of it. That's exactly what was said.
Okay, good. So if she said she would take care of it, why would you post an outcry for money from strangers to bury your mother?
To go during the process of getting that money. Is exactly
No. Let's follow what you said, Mr. Jennings. What you told me was that you had the conversation, she took care of the bill. 2 or 3 days later, you started a GoFundMe page for your mother's funeral expenses. Is that not what he said?
Yes.
If it was a gift to you, I'm not understanding why you would start a GoFundMe page.
It's because it wasn't taken care of within 2 or 3 days, ma'am.
What do you mean it wasn't taken care of?
She didn't pay the bill within 2 or 3 days is the thing. That's the reason I did that.
Well, they wouldn't release the body unless they got paid with a credit card.
I understand that, but I was trying
just
to
a
have
second.
backup.
A backup for what?
Just in case you didn't fall through.
Mr. Jennings, now you're getting cute with me.
For a loan to cover his mother's funeral costs. Chris claims it was a gift.
Now, the plaintiff had to give the hospital her credit card. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So before they released the body, which they had to do within a day, they had her credit card. And it wasn't until after that that you started a GoFundMe page. Okay. And don't raise your hand. And how much money did you receive from this GoFundMe page?
Like $200.
Okay. And you received $200 within what period of time?
Within probably 3 weeks.
How much of that $200 did you give to Miss Spencer?
0.
And your total cost was $1,500. Is that correct? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500.
This court is adjourned.
Well, I'm very pleased that she saw what really did happen.
I think everything went exactly as planned.
I tried to step up in a time of desperation and in an emergency situation, and look where it got me.
Everything's fine.
I think we'll be able to move past. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still my cousin, he's still my blood, and I'm always going to love him.
I actually didn't need the answer to that question that I threw out at you with regard to whether a child is responsible for the remains of their parent, because it was just clear, you know, when you get them to do a timeline for you.
A lot of stuff unravels.
It all unraveled because what was the reason for starting a GoFundMe page if, as he alleged in his answer, she volunteered to pay for the funeral, unless he felt an obligation. Now, the obligation had to be as a result of that conversation that he would start a GoFundMe page. Anyway, unfortunate that she seemed like a very nice lady, very responsible, and she was very caring towards him.
Yes.
Shouldn't have ended up here.
2010, Hickman versus Vensloff. All parties, please step forward.
Vanessa Hickman is suing her trainer, Dylan Vensloff, for an unpaid loan.
Ms. Hickman, your case is relatively simple. You claim that you made a loan to the defendant, who was your personal trainer, when he said he was in a financial bind and he needed rent money, and he made the loan. And he paid some. His wife paid some.
Correct.
He made a couple of payments, but there is still a substantial balance.
Correct.
Mr. Vensloff said that this was not a loan, but prepayment for his training services, and that you sort of backed out of the training/nutrition program. So that's your problem. You lose your money. That's your defense, right?
Yes.
Just curious, before I get started with this case, how much do you get per hour for personal training? No, don't look over there. I want you to know that I know all about this. Everybody that I know except me has a personal trainer. I work out every day. I don't take instruction well, so I don't have a personal trainer. I have a husband who had a personal trainer. All my friends have personal trainers. So now I want you to answer my question, unless there's something extraordinary about you, which there is not. How much do you get per hour for personal training?
$75.
That's a reasonable figure. Just informational purposes. How much money did you take from Miss Hickman?
How much money did I take?
Yes, how much money did you take from me? I haven't decided what it's for, but money exchanged between you, she has proof of how much it was, and you. How much money?
I believe it was $2,300.
Is that right?
Correct.
And on what date did she give you $2,300?
I believe sometime at the end of last year, or it was close to the beginning of this year, somewhere along that time.
Date?
November 22nd, 2021.
And at that time, how long had you been training her? Since when? When did you start with her as a client?
I think like the beginning of summer last year, so I'd say...
Date?
July 2021.
Beginning, middle, or end?
Beginning.
July, August, September, October. So you had been training her for 4 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Up until November 22nd, how much money had she given you for training? Did she pay you by the week? Did she pay you by the month? How did she pay you?
Up front, first,
Okay,
monthly.
in July.
Yep.
Not yup. That's not yup.
Yes,
Yup
ma'am.
you say to your friends or to your wife. So in July,
Yes.
when you started,
Yes.
she gave you how much?
500.
For the month of July.
Yes, ma'am.
The month of August, how much did she give you?
500.
Is that correct?
Correct.
September,
Same amount, ma'am.
500. October,
Same amount.
November,
Same amount.
the beginning of November.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
not
actually,
yeah is not an answer. The beginning
Sorry.
of November, did she give you $500?
No, because that's when we had the agreement.
No. Don't give me agreement nonsense. The beginning of July, she gave you $500.
Yep.
Beginning of August,
Yep.
she gave you $500. Beginning of September,
Yes.
she gave you $500. The beginning of October, she gave you $500. How much did she give you in the beginning of November? This $2,300 was not paid until November 22nd. How much did she give you the beginning of November?
Then it must have been $500.
Is that correct? So now she has given you $2,500
Yes, ma'am.
for 5 months. She's given you $2,500.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I want you to tell me what happened in November after you gave him the $2,500.
So we agreed to $100 monthly payments.
This is in November?
November, after we signed the agreement.
What agreement?
The agreement was that.
No, I want to see the agreement. Don't tell me what it
Absolutely.
was. I'd like to see it. Who wrote this?
I did.
Well, I don't actually understand it. It says, I, Mr. Venzloff, hereby accept $2,300 from my client, Vanessa Hickman, in trade and paid in advance for training. This will cover meal plans, planned workouts, in-person training, check-ins, and virtual check-ins from November 22nd, 2021 to May 15th, or 1 month of training and payment plans of no less than $100 a month, starting 12/22/21. I agree to pay back the full amount in 12 months. I actually don't understand what that means, because you agreed to pay back the full amount in 12 months by paying her no less than $100 a month, starting December 2021. First part says you're accepting this $2,300 from your client in trade and paid in advance for training, but that you will pay her $100 a month and be finished paying her in 12 months by 11/22/2022. Okay. So you wrote this up.
Yes.
I don't understand it because it doesn't make sense.
Of course.
So there had to be a reason why you picked this $2,300. He's been training you July, August, September, October, and November. You paid him $500 each month, or about $120 a week. And all of a sudden, there's a $2,300. What is there something that I said funny? All of a sudden, there's $2,300. Tell me how the $2,300 came about.
So over the course of those months, we became good friends. I see him 3 times a week. We get to know each other, talk, open up, and we're very friendly with each other. He opened up about me about having financial hardships.
No, he'd opened up. He said to you.
Yeah, he said to me, I need to borrow $2,300.
And you said to him?
Why can't you ask anybody else?
And he said to you?
His girlfriend's father, if he were to ask him, he would pry and find out that he was addicted to cocaine.
That's what he told you?
Correct.
And what did you say to him?
Oh, okay. So if I give you this money, we're going to write an agreement to cover me in case you don't pay me back.
And what did he say?
Okay. And that day on November 22nd, we wrote out the agreement.
No, you wrote the agreement.
Absolutely. I wrote it down, and he gave me a photo of his driver's license that day. And
you have a copy of that driver's license?
I do have a photo on my phone, yes.
I'd like to see it.
Of course.
Claims her trainer, Dylan Venzloff, owes for an unpaid loan. Dylan says it was a trade agreement and not a loan.
Okay. Mr. Venzloff, understanding what I said to you before, that everybody that I know has a trainer. Everybody, except me. Nobody that I know has the driver's license of their trainer. Nobody. And I'm very old. Now, can you give me a logical reason why the plaintiff would have a copy of your driver's license in her phone?
To make sure that the trade agreement stays.
What's the trade agreement?
The trade agreement was that she was going to give me the money, and I was going to...
Just a second. Let's go back for a second.
Yeah, no problem.
So what she says, in part, was accurate. Is that what you're telling me?
In part.
That you became friends, you would talk to her, you had a girlfriend, you knew he had a girlfriend.
Correct.
You asked her for money.
Yes, ma'am.
Different amount of money because you were in financial difficulty.
Yes, ma'am.
And that she asked you, why couldn't you ask your girlfriend's father? Because she evidently knew that based upon the fact that you were friends, that you're the wife, girlfriend, whatever, your father has money?
Yes.
Okay. Why couldn't you ask the girlfriend's father, right?
Yes.
She asked you that question?
Yes.
And did you say to her, because I didn't want him to pry?
Yes.
Because I have a cocaine habit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so she gave you the $2,300?
Yep.
Not yup.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
And that was on the 22nd of November of last year. After she gave you that money, and you were supposed to, according to this agreement, make $100 a month payments to her. That would that's what it says.
Yeah, if I was unavailable.
No, it doesn't say, there's nothing here that says unavailable.
Well, it's actually...
There's nothing, that's why I don't understand this agreement.
Yeah.
You see, not yet. That's why I don't understand this agreement, because one talks about training and workouts, and one talks about you agreeing to pay her back within 12 months at no less than $100 a month. So it doesn't make any sense. So now I have to figure out what it was that really happened. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this paper says something about $100 a month. Now, did you ever give her $100 a month?
Yes, for a month.
In what months did you give her $100 a month?
I think it was the first 3 months.
And you gave it to her how?
Via Venmo.
Did he give you the first 3 months?
He gave me the last 2 months, and his wife paid me the first month.
That would be you? Yes. Stand up, please. Tell me your last name.
Venzloff.
When did you find out that your husband had taken money from the plaintiff?
When she had sent me a message on Instagram asking for me to send her money that he was late on a payment.
And that was in what month?
I believe mid-January she messaged me.
January of 2022?
Correct.
And up until that time, your husband had not told you that he took money from the plaintiff? That's an easy question.
I don't believe so, no.
He had not. Well, that's what it sounded like. You didn't know about it because the first you heard about it was when she sent you a message. So he had not told you that he took money from her before. Now, when you found out, you confronted him about this, did you take money from the plaintiff?
I did.
And what did he tell you?
He told me that he had to pay for rent that month.
Were you living together?
We were already married.
Were you working?
I was.
So you were working, and he was working. He was making money. So if you're the wife, you say, what do you mean? We need money for rent. I'm working, you're working. What's it all about? Did you know he had a drug problem?
That was when I found out.
Okay. Well, that's a fair question. I like the honesty. Did you have discussions with him about that?
Yes.
Did he go into rehab?
Yes.
Great. When did he go into rehab?
He went for a week in December into a detox, and then he went for a month this last June, I believe.
Because he had a relapse?
Yes.
How long was it in June?
30 days.
During December and June, had he ever been arrested?
No.
So he did this voluntarily?
Yes.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Take a breath. All fine. Your husband owes her $1,800. That's what she's suing for. That's what he owes her. He knows he owes her that money. She was doing a good thing. She was being kind to him. And probably, ultimately, if he stays clean, saved his life. Mm-hmm. Reasonable, because but for that, you wouldn't have found out, you wouldn't have forced him to take some action. Is that what happened?
Yes.
Do you have a drug problem?
I don't know.
Does your father still not like him?
They're best friends.
They're best friends?
Yes.
Interesting. I'm absolutely shocked. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,800. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
I thought that she handled it very well. I didn't need to go over all the details. She did that all for me.
Honestly, it was a trade agreement, which it clearly states in the first part of it, so I had the entire year.
I don't think that he could have sent me the payments. I had to keep...
To either pay her back or train her, and she served me before the contract was even up.
Crying and messaging him for it. I think court was where it needed to be settled.
All she wanted was the money back, but I told her I was completely available. Then she moved out of the area.
He's a great trainer, absolutely amazing trainer, hands down. Borrowing money, not the smartest decision.
Well, I think he could have handled the situation differently, but I think he was trying to do his best to get us out of a sticky situation.
You know, I think it's about time to find someone else.
I remember my law school days, Sarah. Not clearly, but I remember my law school days. And you know how important it is, I always say you should have a writing, but you're supposed to have a writing that's clear. And I know that there's a rule of law that if a contract or an agreement is ambiguous, that a third party can't figure out, fact finder can't figure out what the intent of the parties was. Was it a training agreement, which is what he said, which is a lot of baloney? Was it a loan? That you're allowed to go beyond that contract. So your experience in law school is much closer.
I did just study this. So it's true that if a fully integrated agreement, meaning that it's clear, the meeting of the minds between parties is clear to a third-party fact finder, then usually outside evidence is not allowed because you clearly have what the meeting of the minds of the parties was. However, in a case like this, when it's more ambiguous or the terms are ambiguous or you're not quite clear what the meeting of the minds was for, a loan, like you said, or training, you're allowed to bring in outside evidence to gap fill those sort of ambiguous
and to
terms.
figure out what the intent of the parties was.
Exactly. So for that exact reason, but I can appreciate that she had enough wherewithal to know that she should have something written. Maybe next time she'll make it just a little clearer for...
And Robert Burrows are suing their former friends, Marina and David Courttv, for illegal eviction and property damage.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, everybody.
Hello, Judge. Case 2072, Burrows versus Courttv.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. and Mrs. Courttv, you were living in a home, in a house?
Correct, a townhome.
That you didn't own. And for how long had you been renting that home?
We did not rent out the home.
How long, if you didn't own it, then you were renting it?
We rented it for 2 years, Your Honor.
It gets scarier if you have a fixed position in your head so that you're not listening to my questions. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
When did your lease start?
July of 2020.
And when was it to terminate?
It was terminated August 1st, 2022.
And it was terminated by an eviction?
Correct.
And you were evicted because the landlord said that you sublet the apartment to these people and their family?
Correct.
And they were people who you knew, both in the military?
Just him.
What do you do?
I'm a federal employee.
And you?
I'm active duty, ma'am.
But you knew each other from work?
Correct.
Where did you move in August?
National City, Your Honor.
How far is that from your prior residence?
It's about 30 miles south, Your Honor.
Are you in a home that you own or that you rent?
We are still renting.
How much are you paying in rent?
$21.50 a month.
You have a signed lease?
We do.
When did that lease start?
August 1st, 2022.
And why did you choose to live in National City?
It is closer to where he is stationed.
It is also the...
Shh. Don't speak.
Yes, Your Honor.
How much closer?
To his job.
To his job?
It went from a 30-minute drive to a 15-minute drive.
Okay, so that's better.
Correct.
You were evicted. You were served a notice of eviction on what date?
They let us know a month before August. They gave us a 30-day notice.
Now, did the plaintiffs have any furniture in the home that you were evicted from?
Prior to us being evicted, yes.
Yes, prior to your being evicted. And what furniture did they have?
2 dressers and a bunk bed.
Anything else?
That's as far as furniture.
And what furniture did you have in there prior to being evicted?
A full living room.
And when did you move that out? On what date?
The 30th of July, 2 days before our moving date.
So you moved out all of your furniture?
Correct.
And how much were you paying in rent in the place from which you were evicted?
$25.95.
Oh, I didn't write that down. How much were you paying in the new place?
The place we are in now, $21.50.
So you're paying less rent?
Correct. It's substantially smaller.
And substantially closer to his place of employment?
Correct.
Good. Now, do you want to tell me your version of how they came to be living in your house?
We received a call one night. It was very late, 10 p.m. Robert was very upset, crying. He had nowhere to go.
He?
Correct. Robert had nowhere to go, and Kelly was asking for a divorce. He asked if he could crash on the couch. We have a toddler at home, so I asked him to sleep in our guest bedroom instead of the couch. He stayed that first original night, and the next day he needed to job hunt as he was jobless. We offered to watch his child. He looked for the job and he came home. He asked us if he could stay for a while in that guest bedroom until he got onto his feet with the job. He offered money to just help out with utilities and
how much?
$1,000.
$1,000 a month?
No, just $1,000. And our words, when he had asked, and we asked him, how long do you think it will take you to get on your feet? It was just a couple weeks.
Okay, so he was offering $1,000.
Correct.
Which was 40% of your rent to stay for 2 weeks, to stay in your guest bedroom. Pretty decent. Did he give you the $1,000?
He did.
And he gave you the $1,000 on what date?
He gave us the $1,000 on May 29th.
And when did he start staying there?
He started staying with us May 21st.
Then what happened?
He stayed with us for about a week. Everything was okay. He job hunted. I helped with the child. Within this week, he...
Look at me.
I'm sorry. He confided in us that he wanted to work on his marriage with Kelly. He did not want the divorce. It was something that she had asked for. They wanted to work on it together and had asked if Kelly could come around to stay with him and the children and work on their marriage.
When he moved into the guest room, did he take the children? Did he have the children with him?
He did, but it was just on certain nights. They were sharing.
And then he asked if Kelly could come as well.
Correct.
The wife. And what did you say? Why couldn't he go home?
He could not go home due to their relationship with her parents. Their parents.
Oh, she was living with her parents.
Correct.
And they were both living with her parents.
Correct.
So he said, I can't go home. We want to work on the marriage. Could we come and stay here with you?
Correct.
They have 2 kids?
They have 3.
They have 3 kids. And how many dogs?
4.
4 dogs. So far, you get 4 stars if you let her come.
I wish it would have worked that way.
No. You don't understand that that's where I'm at so far.
Yeah, of course.
So now, May 29th, he gives you the $1,000. She moves in when with the dogs?
So we had a long trip planned to Vegas. We let them know that after we had left, she could come stay while we were gone.
What month? June?
June, correct.
How long were you away?
We were away for 5 to 6 days.
Well, what was he going to do when she came there with the 4 dogs, 3 kids after 6 days? What was the plan?
This was never a plan of, here's a lease agreement you are going to rent from us. It was just I need somewhere to stay. Can they please come for this short period of time until we figure this out?
Great. Okay, now let me hear your version of the events. When you went to stay there with your children, you were having trouble with your wife.
It's incorrect.
Incorrect.
Former friends, Marina and David Courttv, for an illegal eviction. Marina and David are countersuing, saying Kelly and Robert caused them to be evicted.
So when you went to their house and you wanted to work on your marriage, you could have gone back to your in-laws.
Yes, that's correct.
You could have. Why didn't you?
The reason why we decided to split up was because we're trying to keep our kids in the same school district. So with having 4 dogs, that's impossible to keep in an HOA. So she decided to go with her parents. I decided to stay back to finish the school year with the kids, still being in May, so they can finish in the same school district. That's why I decided I needed a mailing address so that they could stay in the same school district.
So you mean this discussion that she just said to me about you having problems, marital problems with your wife, that never happened?
Irrelevant. It's just...
No, that's not what I said. What I said was, because I believe her. I believe that that's what happened. I believe that you called her and said exactly what she said. She told me. I mean, I don't have to have Whitney read it back. I believe that that's what you said. So I don't want to hear baloney about school districts. You were having trouble with your wife.
No, ma'am.
No.
No.
And you didn't tell her that.
We had been moved out of our old place of 6 years in El Cajon, and we were trying for 6 months to find a new place. So yes, it does put a lot of stress on a relationship, but we did not have any marital...
Mr. Burrows, you know what my strong suit is, and there's no question that the cameras just caught your face. My strong suit is being able to spot a lie from a mile away. And I'm telling you that there's no question that you called her late at night and said, I'm having trouble with my wife. She asked me for a divorce. Can I come and stay with you? There's no question that whether it was true or not, I don't know, because clearly you're a liar. So maybe it wasn't true, but that's what you told her.
Your Honor, may I speak?
You want me to call your parents?
Please do.
Would you like me to call your parents? I'm just asking you, would you like me to call your parents?
No.
Of course not. That's an easy thing for me to do.
Part of what was going on was that we lived in our home for 6 years and the homeowners had moved back in, and so they asked us to leave, and we had been actively searching for a home. So yes, it did put a bit of a strain on our marriage, and I took my dogs with me so that I can keep my operating business at my parents' house because I am a dog boarder, dog sitter, and I did not want to shut my business down. And during this time,
tensions, little things happening at my parents' house. So I said, you need to go see if you can rent a room or find somebody that can help you in the meantime till we can actively keep searching for a place for our family. We tried 5 different homes and we didn't.
I don't care. What I said to your husband was he lied to me. Because there's no question that he called, and whether it was true or not, that he said to your friends, I need a place to go. Do you have a place that I could stay on the couch? There's no question he said that to her.
That is true. Yes, that is true.
Okay, well, then I want you to introduce your husband to the truth.
Is it true?
It's something that he hasn't met, because that's not what he told me what happened.
Correct.
So that was a mistake of his. That was a mistake. And you know what happens when you lied to me once? Your case is dismissed. Because what you're suing for is being evicted, and you go, blah, 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 emotional distress. You lie to me once, your case is dismissed. Now, we're going to come over here. You have a counterclaim. Your counterclaim is money owed for property damage.
Correct.
And for damages for eviction, because what happened was your landlord evicted you because she comes with her 4 dogs, 3 gerbils, 2 parakeets to your house, and the owner of your condo doesn't want her any more than the owner of their last condo.
Of course.
Didn't want them. Got to save your money, buy your own house, so you can have as many dogs and parakeets as you like. You moved into a place that's nicer?
Absolutely not.
Tell me what the papers said when your landlord notified you of the eviction. Do you have them?
We do.
I'd like to take a look at them.
Yes, no problem. There was also in that piece of paper a $250 fine through our HOA from the whole commotion that he caused the day of asking them to leave.
Just a second, you were a month-to-month tenant?
Correct.
You didn't have a lease for 2 years. You were a month-to-month tenant?
We had a year lease, and then when the year was up, we moved month to month.
They didn't evict you?
No, they just gave us, they asked us
Just a second. Your lawsuit is for damages, punitive damages for an eviction. You weren't evicted.
Well, we were asked to leave if we...
No, they just decided not to renew your month-to-month lease.
Due to the...
I don't care what it was due to. Listen, if I owned a property and you let 3 kids, 4 dogs, moved into my condo for 6 days, I wouldn't renew your lease on a month-to-month basis either. I don't care whether they were there for 2 days, 4 days, a week, or a month. You understand?
Understood.
Okay, so there was no eviction. So the punitive damages for that, forget it. Money owed for property damage. When they moved out, what did they damage? And how much did it cost you?
There was a hole in the molding from moving the dressers down our stairs. They bonked it, bringing it out angrily because they were mad that we asked them to leave. We have the letters from our landlord stating everything that they had to deduct from our deposit.
Just a second, a hole in the wall. And how much was the hole in the wall?
The molding was...
No, just look at the paper and tell me how much was the hole in the wall.
The painting was $180 and the molding repair was $200.
Now, did you damage the molding when you were moving a dresser out of the house?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, not that you're aware of. You want to try the truth now? Was there a hole that you created moving a dresser out of the house?
When David and I were moving our dresser over the stairs, down the stairs.
Who's David?
The defendant.
So you were moving out the dresser with him? Careful, introducing you to the truth. Did you move the dresser with him?
I did help move the furniture
Your
out.
case is dismissed. The counterclaim likewise is dismissed. We're done. Thank you.
This court is adjourned.
I take it as a win. The initial suit was them against us. Their suit got dismissed.
We lost a lot of things and a lot of wages.
That was just us being good friends. We definitely learned our lesson. We will never help another crying husband on our doorstep claiming divorce again.
People that are offering to be nice to you in times of need don't charge you.
They kind of cried, oh, marriage and divorce the whole time, knowing that we're young and married. It's something we take seriously in our lives.
We're still trying to build our lives back.
I should actually make a party to introduce all those people to Mr. Truth.
I agree. There's a lot of mismatch. Doesn't make sense. If you're going to stay with a friend for a few days, you don't bring a bunk bed and 2 dressers. No. I've stayed with friends for a couple days, long weekend. You bring a bag with some clothes.
Even with your kids.
Yeah, you don't bring furniture. You don't bring any of that. So there's a lot of discrepancies.
Things that didn't make sense. If it doesn't